If people approach dating the same way that most nonprofits approach fundraising, they probably wouldn't be in a relationship very long. And that's part of the problem. Welcome to the Legacy Leadership Podcast, where we focus on helping Christian founder led nonprofits get funded so that you can lead well, live whole, and leave a legacy. One of the core principles I want to talk about today is that effective, long lasting fundraising is all about relationships. Oftentimes, we think about fundraising in more of a transactional way. And I want to encourage you after today to think of fundraising in more of a relational fashion, that transactions lead to one-time donations, short-term results, while relationships lead to repetitive donations, people who give month after month, year after year. Relational fundraising has more depth, more investment from the people who are giving, and ultimately is more effective and long lasting than transactional fundraising. It's not just about having an event and people giving one time, or throwing some kind of a 4K race where people might give a lot of one time investments or donations, or they're paying to be in the race and then you never talk to them again. Effective and long lasting fundraising is all about relationships. And when we can focus on relationships, we maximize our effort and energy. It costs us far less to maintain a relationship with somebody than it does to go out and get a new relationship. It takes less energy to maintain a relationship that we already have than it does to build a brand new relationship, to network and find somebody new. I want to encourage you first to think of your donors not as donors, but to think of them as partners, mission partners, or in a business, we might think of them more as investors. They're people that are invested in the work we are doing. They're partnering with the work. They're collaborating with us. It's not just about us doing the work and they give us the money, but they're part of the mission. They're part of the accomplishment of the mission. They are part of resolving the problems or seeing the needs met. And when we can think of people as partners, not just donors, it will help us to build those relationships with other people. If we can redefine what a donor is in our mind, not just somebody who gives to the organization, but somebody who's invested in the organization. Not someone who just writes a check, but somebody who is part of the mission with us. We all might have different skills. We might have different gifts that God has given us. Some of us are gifted in doing the work, doing the ministry, being with the people on the front lines, and other people are gifted with the means to bring in finances, to make money, to be able to support organizations and what they're doing. We all have different gifts that can play together. I like to think of the Apostle Paul's analogy of the body of Christ, that not everyone's a hand, not everyone's a foot, but that each of us are given different gifts to see the kingdom of God expand and grow, to see people's lives touched and changed. And so I'm not looking for donors, I'm looking for partners. I'm looking for other people who want to partner with me, who want to utilize their gifts for us to be able to advance this mission that God has given us together. This really leads back into that 4 basic steps framework: plan, present, gain, maintain. That we don't want to just gain a donation, but we want to maintain the relationship. There is an important step in asking and then having somebody write a check, or making a presentation at a church and having someone sponsor a child or make a donation or whatever that action might be that we ask them. There's that place of transaction that happens, but then we should be maintaining the relationship as time goes on. We're not just inviting people to donate, we're inviting them to partner. I like to think of a dating analogy, which I mentioned earlier in this episode, that the same way with dating, we wouldn't go on a first date, have a great time, really connect with each other, and then totally ghost the other person. If we had a great connection and we liked each other and we liked how things went, we would follow up. We'd send a text. We'd want to invite them to spend more time with us. It's the same thing with our donors, with our partners. That when we have that first interaction, I like to think of that as the first donation, the first date. That after we have that first donation, we shouldn't just ghost the person, never follow back up with them, but we should maintain that relationship. We should have a thank you card. We should follow up with a text. We should give them updates of what's happening in our organization. But what we often do, following this dating analogy, is that we have a great first date, a great experience, we both feel really good about it, and then we ghost them until we need another donation, until we're feeling the pressure of finances in our organization, and then we send another letter, we make another request, we invite them on a second date. After 8 months of not having any contact at all, we all of a sudden ask them for another date. Again, how would that go in the dating sphere? You probably wouldn't have very many relationships. You wouldn't have very many second dates, and you'd end up with a lot of people that are just frustrated and feeling very used. And that's what we often do to our donors, is that they feel used, it ends up feeling gross, feels icky. We get a lot of one-time donations, but very little follow-up afterwards, because we haven't done a good job at building the relationship in between asking them to make donations. And so maintaining relationships can involve lots of different aspects, just like maintaining any relationship in our life. If we can be good at relationships, we can be good at fundraising. But it takes intentionality, it takes time, it takes focus to be able to build these relationships. Some basic things that you can do to maintain relationships with your donors is to send a thank you card. After you've received a donation from somebody, handwritten thank you cards are one of the best ways to maintain a relationship and show people that you care and that their gift mattered. I love handwriting thank you cards. It's actually really funny, and part of the reason why I enjoy thank you cards is I've seen the value in them. I remember when I wrote my first thank you card, though, I never wanted to write a thank you card ever again in my entire life. I think it was after my eighth birthday, I had somebody get me a Game Boy, and it was a huge gift. It was a big deal. It was really, really cool and exciting. And afterwards, my dad told me that I needed to write a thank you card to this individual. And I didn't know how complicated writing a thank you card could be. It was crazy. I think I rewrote that thank you card 30 times before he finally let me send it. Because the first time I wrote it and I misspelled something and I tried to just cross it off and then keep writing the rest of the thank you card. And my dad told me, no, you have to write it all, no crossing off words. He ripped it up and told me to go rewrite it. And so I had this brilliant idea as an 8-year-old that if I couldn't have misspelled words and I couldn't cross things out, I was going to write it with a pencil and then I could erase. And so I brought the thank you card and showed it to my dad again, and he told me how it's not professional to write a thank you card in pencil, that I needed to write it in pen. So he tore it up and told me to go back and do it a third time. And then I misspelled a word, but I didn't cross it out. And then I had it all, everything was written crooked on my thank you card, and he said, nope, you got to go back and write it straight. If you need to, use a ruler. And we went back and forth. It probably was 30 times before I finally had a thank you letter that met my dad's approval of thank you cards. But what I learned from that experience was not only how to write a thank you card, but how valuable writing thank you cards could be. When I encountered that person again who had given me that gift, there was a connection that was there that was a depth of connection that was really special. And I've made writing thank you cards part of my life ever since then. I love writing thank you cards to people who make donations. It's one of those small things that we can do that puts us in a different category than other people. Very few people handwrite cards anymore, and so to receive a handwritten card is incredibly impactful. I was just recently going through some of my dad's stuff from his office, and he had a folder of handwritten cards that people had given him or sent to him. And there wasn't a lot in there, and it was meaningful enough to him that he actually kept them in a special folder in his office, because they were so meaningful to him that people had written these handwritten cards to him. So that can be one great way to maintain a relationship, is to do something significant to thank somebody when they do make a donation. In between making donations, you can send emails. You can make sure they are connected to you on social media where you're doing updates. If somebody has been a larger partner with your organization, maybe you send them specific information or updates around the project that they gave to. If they supported the building of a school, you could send pictures along the way as the school's being built and just keep them in the loop the same way you would with any other partner. Maybe you follow them on Facebook and you interact with significant things that are going on in their life the same way you would with any other relationship that mattered. If they have a friend or a family member that passes away, maybe you send flowers. You attend the funeral or the wake. Maybe their daughter or son are getting married and you say a congratulations. Anything you can do to maintain that relationship, to be intentional in the relationship and make sure that they know how much they matter to the work that it is that you're doing. So I want to encourage you for this week to write down your top 10 partners, the people that have given the most to your ministry, have supported to the greatest degrees. Not that the others don't matter, but I want you to pick 10 people, and I want you to ask yourself, what was the last thing that you did to connect with them relationally? What was the last interaction that you had? And what is one thing you could do moving forward, one action you could take for each of those people to let them know that they matter, to treat that relationship as important, impactful, not just to ask them for another gift, but to connect with them in a relational way. Now, I want to encourage you that now that you have this framework, these 4 basic steps, plan, present, gain, maintain, and that you've learned how important it is to maintain relationships, that now you are getting to some of the core secrets to being an effective fundraiser. If you want to learn more about gaining momentum in your fundraising, then you can go and check out my book, Fundraising Momentum. It's on Amazon. I'll drop the link in the show notes. You can also go to my website at legacyleadershipsystem.com and check out the resources there.